Hello everyone, welcome to the Ichimoku.co daily US stock market review for the trading day ending Tuesday, April 29th. Well, today we saw the NASDAQ at 100 up 29 points, up 0.8% to close at 35.74, and the S&P 500 up 0.5%, which was 9 points to close at 18.78. Now, this was the second consecutive up day for the equities markets, and today it was generally shared across the board with 9 sectors being up. On the economic front, the Case-Shiller Home Price Index came in at being up 0.88% for February, so some good news there on the housing front. And tomorrow we have some very important economic data. The FOMC policy directive will potentially have an impact on the market, so an important day coming up. So just quickly looking at the S&P 500, and here we saw that change of trend that we were looking for on the previous day. The market had been selling off. A spinning top type candle eventuated with the market finding support at the top of the cloud. The buyers coming in to a degree where the sellers lost control of the market, and today the buyers have maintained control, much stronger control than the previous day's trading, with a white body candle and changing the trend. The problem here for the buyers are that the 1883 has been an important level in the recent past and a month or so ago, so it will be a very tough level to breach. So it seems, however, that with the size of the white body becoming a bit larger than the previous white body, it seems that the buyers may be attempting to build momentum to successfully test that level. So what we're looking for here, we want some follow through, we want a bullish close up above 1883 if the buyers are going to be strong enough to test the major high at 1897. In terms of Ichimoku, we have a bullish market in all three timeframes, trading above the cloud, the Kijun-sen, the Tenkan-sen. Looking at the Chikou span, that's within the corresponding price action. It is above the close, but so telling us that we do have some upside momentum, but being within the corresponding price action suggests that that upside momentum may not be terribly strong. So and that is a longer time frame than what we're looking at here with just the on a candle to candle basis. We did have an important crossover of the Tenkan-sen above the Kijun-sen once again, giving us a bullish market and a buy signal with Ichimoku, and that occurred up above the cloud, so it suggests that it is a strong signal. But I think we do need to wait until the market clears this 1883 level of previous resistance. Now, just looking quickly at the Fibonacci extension, and we are trading in a fairly bullish manner above the 38.2% level. The next level is the 50% level, which coincides roughly with that previous swing high and the resistance around this area. And then the next important level is the 61.8% level, corresponding almost with the major high at 1897. So some very strong resistance overhead for this market, not only in terms of peaks and troughs, but also in terms of Fibonacci. Moving to the NASDAQ 100, and here today we've seen that expected change of trend, where we previously had the doji type candle finding support down below the Tenkan-sen and at the important 3500 level. The buyers have come into this market closing with fairly strong control, a white body candle suggesting that momentum is now on the side of the buyers, and therefore we have seen that change of trend that has supported the Japanese candlestick harami pattern reversal, and it does confirm that reversal. Now, importantly though, the market is interacting with the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud, and there is potential for strong resistance around this area. So this is suggesting that if we do see any follow through, it may not be terribly significant. We do have strong resistance around the 35.92 level, and then the resistance here extends all the way through to the top of the cloud, which is at the 36.72 area. So some very strong resistance for this market, and the NASDAQ 100 could find resistance anywhere through up to that level, but especially around the edges is where you tend to see that strong resistance, and that's where we did see some price rejection in a minor way earlier today. Now, by the same token, we have seen the sellers losing commitment down around the 35.48 or 35.48 level, and that level corresponds roughly with the area that the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen are trading in. Now, technically we have still a bearish market in that longer term time frame, with the market trading down below the Ichimoku cloud, but it's so close to the cloud that it's really more neutral than bearish. Looking at the Chica span, that's below the corresponding price action, so it's suggesting that there is still some negative momentum in this market, suggesting that we could see the sellers come in and sell the market off again. But we do have a bullish market in the medium and fast term time frames by trading above the Ichimoku indicators, the Kijun-sen and the Tenkan-sen here. That's the pink line and the green line, and those indicators are roughly around that 35.43 level, strengthening the amount of support that we should see around there. So even if we do see the sellers come back into the market, they may have trouble trading through that 35.43 area, and they will need to be quite strong to trade down through there. Now I suggest that if they do breach that area in a bearish way, we could quickly see the market testing down to the 3500 level. Important also is that we've seen the crossover of the Tenkan-sen above the Kijun-sen, giving us a buy signal with Ichimoku, but it is a weak buy signal, and that's because it's occurred down below the Ichimoku cloud. So and the reason why they tend to be weak signals when they occur below the cloud is that it's very likely that the market is going to run into the cloud very soon and find resistance there, and that's exactly what we've seen here at the moment. So not a strong signal that we should really be taking any heed of it at the moment. Now in terms of the sectors in the equities market, and here we've seen generally all of the sectors are up, a few laggards, but they were pretty much up across the board. The communication services sector was the strongest, up 1.13%, but that is down 4.3% for the year. The energy sector is quite strong and up 0.8%, up 8% for the year to date, and the energy sector was up 0.9% today. The consumer defensive sector, which is up 3.2% year to date, was down 0.5% today, and the utility sector, which has also been a strong sector with the energy sector for the year, up 11% for the year, was down 0.32% for the trading day. So just looking here at the communication services sector on the daily chart, and here we've seen the market rallying here, up 1.13%, trending above both the Kijun-sen and the Tenkan-sen, so we have some upside momentum in terms of the medium and fast term time frames. The Chica span is above the corresponding price action, but the sector is trading within the Ichimoku cloud, giving us a neutral market in that big picture time frame. Now there is a possibility of the market trading up above the cloud, and that will give us a bullish market in all three time frames. It is a possibility because we've seen some nice extension of the size of the candle today, the size of the body of the candle, and that suggests that the buyers have found some increased momentum on the previous day's trading. So there is a possibility of continued upside, but we do have a minor resistance level around here where the market's trading, and just above there, coinciding with the top of the cloud. Now also, if we do see a breakout for tomorrow's trading or over the next few days, that is a flat part of the cloud, and we can have false breakouts from flat parts of the cloud, so let's be aware of that. In terms of relative strength, really not outperforming the market, has been underperforming the market over the last previous week or so, and now is quite neutral, performing in line with the S&P 500. But looking at volatility here, we are at a cyclical low in volatility on the daily charts, so it wouldn't surprise to see volatility tick up and for price trending action to come into this market quite strongly. So where we've seen, looking bigger picture here, we're seeing a congestion area, so we will be looking potentially for a breakout to the upside or to the downside here, and looking for some follow through on the daily charts. In terms of the weekly chart, and here we can see the strong underperformance to the S&P 500 here, and still maintaining underperformance. So the communication services sector is really doing it quite tough, and we can see that volatility was ticking up, but really the amount of appreciation while volatility was moving higher was really quite weak, and we had in bigger picture terms something of a congestion area. But importantly, the sector has been finding resistance at the Tenkan-sen, the green line here, and at the Kijun-sen, the pink line. So not a terribly strong market, but I suggest that if we do see some follow through for this week's trading and the buyers continue in a bullish manner, we could see a breakout up above the Kijun-sen, the pink line, giving us a bullish market in all three time frames. So that's something that we should be on the lookout for. Looking at the Chica span, that is below the corresponding price action, so it's not supporting suggesting the bullishness that we've got in the longer term time frame, and that has changed from being positive to negative over the past month or so. So the outlook here is not really determined in a longer term time frame or a medium term time frame until we see a potential breakout above the Kijun-sen. Now moving to the energy sector on the daily charts, and here we've seen a change of trend to the upside with a fairly solid bullish candle, a nice extension of the size of the body and a white body, so suggesting that the momentum in net terms is with the buyers. Some loss of commitment by the buyers, and the buyers closing with only a weak amount of control, so suggesting that all may not be healthy with this establishment of the new first time frame uptrend, and there is potential for the market to come off because of that, but all is not lost because of the white body. Now we have a bullish market in all three time frames, trading above each of the Ichimoku indicators, and the Chiker span is well above the corresponding price action, and that in itself is some cause for concern because this market is looking a little overextended in the distance away from the price action, as is the distance of price action away from the cloud, so looking a little overextended. Now in terms of relative strength here, and we can see that the energy sector has been outperforming the S&P 500 for quite some time since the final week of April, and is still continuing to outperform the overall market. We can see the relative strength indicator up above, and not to be confused with the RSI, this is relative strength comparative, up above the upper one standard deviation Bollinger Band, so maintaining that strength, but the distance of the indicator away from the Bollinger Band is not as great as it has been previously, so perhaps some weakening in momentum on a relative strength basis as well. In terms of the weekly chart, and very strong as well, trading up above each of the Ichimoku indicators, giving us a bullish market in all three timeframes. The Chiker span is above the corresponding price action, confirming the bullishness, and that's a good sign, and isn't looking overextended on the weekly charts, although the distance of the price action away from the cloud is looking a little overextended. So it wouldn't surprise to see the market come off, but I suggest that if that does happen, the first place that we'll see support would be here at the Tenkan-sen around the 1580 level. In terms of outperformance, we see that outperformance against the S&P 500 here for from the end of March, and still maintaining that outperformance, and trending up strongly in terms of volatility from a cyclical low, and continuing that uptrend in volatility, and suggesting that there perhaps may be more uptrending price action to come. Just looking at the consumer defensive sector, and here we've seen a continuation of the trend to the upside today, but if we look at this candle, the characteristics are very much different than the previous day's trading, where we saw a bullish candle with the buyers strongly in control. Here we've seen, even though we have an uptrend in place, we have the sellers taking control and suggesting a very real possibility of a change of trend. The shadow on the top highlights a downside price rejection and highlights the buyers losing commitment, and that black body suggests that net momentum has shifted to the sellers, so we are looking for a potential change of trend. Now if that trend does change, there is good potential for support at the Tenkan-sen, which is trading at 27.39, and if the market does trade down through there should be very strong support at the Kijun-sen at 27.05. In relative strength terms, the consumer defensive sector was outperforming the market for some time, almost a month or so, but over the previous couple of weeks has now begun trading back within the Bollinger Bands on a relative strength basis. It is outperforming the overall market by trading above that moving average of the relative strength, but not strongly so. So that is important, and probably better allocating towards sectors that are stronger on a relative strength basis. Looking at volatility, here we've seen volatility attempting to tick up from a cyclical low, but if we look closely, we haven't seen that volatility indicator, which is standard deviation, moving outside of the upper band yet, so in terms of strength, not as strong as we'd like to see. Looking at the weekly chart, and a slightly different picture here in terms of relative strength and volatility. A bullish market in all three timeframes on the Ichimoku charts, looking very, very strong. The Chica span is supporting the bullishness that we're seeing. Looking a little bit overextended in the distance away from the clouds, so a possibility of a pullback, and that eventually will occur. But there aren't any signs here at the moment on the weekly charts that will occur. If the market does come off, there should be very strong support at the Tenkan Sen, which is at 26.85, and that has been pointing up sharply, and that generally is the first area that we find very strong support. Relative strength, we have been moving higher than that upper Bollinger Band for some time, coming back towards it, but it is a stronger sector in terms of trading up above there on a relative strength basis, and that wasn't always the case. Here we saw the consumer defensive sector underperforming the market for the last 7 or 8 or possibly 9 months. In terms of volatility, volatility is kicking up from a cyclical low and is up above that bottom, that top Bollinger Band, and suggesting that there could be more volatility coming into the market, and suggesting that we could see this uptrend continue to significantly higher levels. And just looking at the utility sector, and that was the laggard today, it was down 0.26%. A candle that's fairly similar to the previous sector that we were looking at on the daily basis. Whereas we previously had the buyers in control, the sellers have taken control. No change of trend in the first time frame, but a very real possibility of that with a black body candle. And I suggest that, as we've seen in the recent past, that Tenkan Sen is going to be very important support. That Tenkan Sen is trading at 310, 311, and should provide very solid support, and we should see some strong buying coming in there. A bullish market in all three timeframes, not outperforming the market, the S&P 500 for today on a daily basis, but it has been in the recent past, or I should say not outperforming strongly. We are still trading up above that moving average, so there is an outperformance, but not as strong as we'd like to see. Looking at volatility is coming off a cyclical high, and has moved back to within the Bollinger Bands, so is pretty much on par with what it with an average, and whereas we have seen volatility outside of the bottom band suggesting that volatility is coming off, we still could see volatility start to tick down again if we do see the change of trend as expected. So perhaps we aren't going to see on a daily basis the continuation of such strong price levels that we've seen in the recent past, but we really should be looking to the Ichimoku charts for confirmation of that. We don't have any confirmation on really in the medium, long or fast term basis until we see the market interact with the Ichimoku indicators, the Kijun Sen, the Tenkan Sen, and the Ichimoku cloud. On the weekly charts, the utility sector is looking very, very strong. This current candle, as it's developing, is not looking terribly strong, however, but remember, it hasn't finished trading yet. There is a long way to go. If it finishes like that, then it does suggest a very real possibility of a change of trend. But looking at the previous candles, there have been a succession of very large white body candles, except for one there, and even that one candle that was rather indecisive, where the sellers had attempted to take control, it still didn't change the trend, and I think it says something about the strength overall in the utility sector. Looking a little overextended, however, and that is a bit of a worry, trading a long way up above the cloud. So something of a pullback would be healthy for this market, and but this market is bullish in all three timeframes. The Chica span is above the corresponding price action, and it suggests that there is strong momentum in this market, but that also is looking a little overextended, as we've seen here, around here, and it wouldn't surprise to see the market retrace to a degree in the near future. Looking at outperformance to the S&P 500, strongly outperforming, being above that upper Bollinger Band, and there is a possibility of that continuing. You can see that it is starting to tick down a little bit with this current candle that's developing. So what we don't want to see is that indicator moving back within the Bollinger Bands or even below the moving average, but there is still a strong outperformance at the moment. Looking at volatility, still trending strongly off a cyclical low, but we are getting closer to a cyclical high, so it wouldn't surprise to see volatility come off, and that may correspond with a change of trend soon. Now, as I suggested, if the market does come off, if the utility sector does come off, we should see strong support down here around this 300 level at the Tenkan Sen, and that's what we tend to see first off, the first area of support when we have a very, very strong uptrend in a market, as we do in the utility sector. Now, in terms of strong stocks or interesting stocks in those sectors, we're going to look at Verizon, which is VZ, trading at 46.77, up 0.36%. XOM closing at 101.45, up 0.28%. Procter & Gamble PG closing at 82.44, down 0.6%. And the Southern Company in the utility sector, the code is SO, closing at 46.36 and down 0.7% for today. So looking at Verizon here, and here we see a market that's trading down below the Ichimoku indicators, below the Kijun Sen, the Tenkan Sen, and trading just at the Ichimoku cloud, so not a terribly strong stock in terms of the daily charts, quite weak. And as we've seen this market rallying, we saw some strength in the market for the previous day's trading. Today's trading, the buyers maintaining control, but on a very small body candle, suggesting that this may be something of a potential reversal pattern, and that's because the size of that white body has really constricted to a large degree, and suggesting that we're not getting any follow through from the buyers in terms of net momentum. There is a real possibility of a change of trend back to the downside here. If we look at this stock on a relative strength basis, it has been underperforming the S&P 500 and still continues to do so by trading below that bottom Ichimoku indicator, so suggesting that there's a real possibility of the sellers coming back in. We have seen a cyclical low in volatility in the recent past, and then began to tick up as we saw the strong sell-off below the Ichimoku cloud, so that suggests that there is still a possibility of price action coming, well, sellers coming back into the price action here and trending the market back down in a second term time frame. And on the weekly charts, really the story here is about trading down below the Ichimoku cloud and finding resistance at the Kijun Sen indicator on multiple occasions. And for the previous week, the market attempted to rally up to that level, and Verizon saw the sellers come in strongly to trade down below the Ichimoku cloud once again. Potential for support around this 45.50 level, so that is an important level and has been previous resistance and previous support. So if we do see the sellers come back in, then we may see the market hold up around there, and then a previous level back around here, around 45, could see some support there. But on the relative strength basis, we have seen a fairly weak market since July last year, and still underperforming the market relatively strongly. We are at a cyclical low in volatility, so a breakout down below some of this support could see volatility kick up and could see substantially lower levels, but we do need to watch and wait for the market to react to those levels if we do trade down around that area. The next to look at is Exxon. The code is XOM, up 0.28% today. A continuation of the trend to the upside, but a trading day where the buyers have lost commitment and the sellers have taken control, and suggesting that we could see a change of trend for the next day's trading. If that change of trend does occur, we should see strong support at the Tenkan Sen, which is trading at 100.77, and if we look at the angle of that indicator, it has been pointing up quite strongly, reflecting the solid upside momentum, and this market is bullish in all three timeframes by trading above each of the Ichimoku indicators, and the Chica span is quite bullish as well. The market has been testing just above this important level of resistance, this major swing high where we saw the sellers coming in strongly to sell the market off down to below the $90 level. So today the stock attempted to breach that area and has failed to close above there, so we could see a sell-off based on previous price action in January earlier this year. But I suggest that we should be looking to the area at the Tenkan Sen first for support, 100.77, then at 98.32 down here at the Kijun Sen. In terms of the weekly chart, a fairly strong market, bullish in all three timeframes. Chica span is confirming the bullish price action, looking a little overextended in the distance of the Chica span away from the price action and the price action away from the Ichimoku cloud, so I wouldn't surprise to see the market come off. Even the distance trading away from the Tenkan Sen does raise some concern, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do see this market come off quite soon. In terms of relative strength, not strongly outperforming the market, and that's quite significant here, trading around that upper Bollinger Band, whereas it was previously trading above, and it suggests that we may see some downtrending price action. The volatility has reached a cyclical low or an intermediate low and has been attempting to tick up with price action trading higher, so that suggests that there is still a possibility of price action trading to the upside, but we will need to see a strong bullish close up above the swing high around this 100.88 level, 101.88 level. Next to look at here is Procter & Gamble, looking quite strong on an Ichimoku basis by trading above each of the Ichimoku indicators. The Chica span is confirming that, and we have a bullish market from the previous candle, a very strong bullish market. Today a very small black body candle, and even though we haven't a change of trend, it suggests the possibility of a change of trend, so we will be looking for confirmation of a bearish harami pattern, and that would be a candle with a lower high and a lower low. Now I suggest that if we do see that, we may see some support coming in around this previous swing high at 82.21, but then certainly should see some support coming in around the Tenkan Sen at 81.19, and then perhaps down at the Kijun Sen at 80.73. On relative strength basis, just performing slightly above the S&P 500, whereas we had some outperformance, so nothing terribly strong here. There was an attempt to trade strongly for that previous bullish candle, but we now have seen the relative strength comparative indicator move back to within the Bollinger Bands. Volatility seems to be ticking up, and that was due to this very strong bullish candle, so we will see whether the buyers are able to maintain upside momentum that they established very strongly with that candle. So even though we have a potential Japanese candlestick bearish harami pattern, we do require confirmation of it, so there's no guarantee that that will be a reversal pattern. On the weekly chart, a bullish market in all three timeframes here, trading above the cloud, above the Kijun Sen and the Tenkan Sen. But looking at the Chica span, that is within the corresponding price action. It is just above the close, so suggesting some momentum. But by trading within the corresponding price action, it suggests that there is some doubt about whether we will see continuation of this trend to the upside. Now, we do have a flat Kijun Sen here, and price action tends to be attracted back towards a flat Kijun Sen, so we will be looking for that. But at the moment, as this weekly candle has developed, we have a change of trend to the upside and a fairly strong change with a white body candle. So let's wait and see how the weekly candle develops over the next few days, and then take a closer look towards the end of the week. But looking at relative strength on a weekly chart, Procter & Gamble has been underperforming the market quite strongly at times, and over the past 3 months or so has been underperforming the S&P 500, but now is performing pretty much on par with the S&P 500 for the last month or so. So a change of performance from underperformance to moving on a par, and there is a possibility of the relative strength comparative indicator moving outside of the top Bollinger Band, and if that does occur, it may signify a change of sentiment in Procter & Gamble, and perhaps a switch from fund managers to this stock as a protective measure. In terms of volatility, near a cyclical low in volatility, so it wouldn't surprise to see volatility tick up, and if we do see buyers coming into the market, that would correspond with some strong upside price rejection price action. Sorry. At the moment, the market is interacting with an important level of previous resistance around this 78, $79, $80 level, so has been tested on 3 or 4 occasions and only about a month or so ago, and we are just managing to poke above there, so it is an important area for this market, and if we see a strong bullish close up above there, we could see Procter & Gamble trading up to about the $86 level. Now moving to the Southern Company, a stock in the utility sector, and the code there is SO, and here we see a very strong market in big picture terms, trading above the cloud, above the Kijun-sen, the Tenkan-sen, and the Chikou span is confirming strong price action, looking overextended however in the distance away from the cloud and the Chikou span away from the price action, so it wouldn't surprise to see this market come off to a degree, and we perhaps have seen the initiation of that today with a black body candle after 3 very solid white body candles with the buyers previously in control. Now the sellers have taken control, even though we haven't had a change of trend. So a very real possibility of a change of trend in that first time frame, but I suggest that the Tenkan-sen trading at 45.83 should see price action hold around that area, and that's what we tend to see with a very strong market. If that fails, then the Kijun-sen at 44.88 should see price action support. In terms of outperformance, has been fairly strongly outperforming the overall market, is just within or very close to the upper Bollinger Band, and suggesting that still outperforming, but there may be a possibility of the relative strength comparative moving back to within the Bollinger Bands and giving us a neutral in terms of performance to the S&P 500. Looking at volatility, certainly at very high levels, and it wouldn't surprise to see volatility come off and this market to either retrace or to congest. So no indication of that yet, however, in terms of volatility, but a real possibility of that, with volatility being at extremely high levels. In terms of the weekly chart, and here we've seen a strong bullish breakout up above the Ichimoku cloud, some follow through, the buyers in control for the previous week, and now we're seeing price rejection, and the market has been interacting with a previous swing high around this area here, around the $47 level, and the influence of that is perhaps starting to show in this market with this current candle being rejected from that area. So this candle hasn't completed yet, so we do need to watch how the market does finalize for the current week, but at the moment it's not looking good. Now if we do see the market come off, there is potential for some support at this previous swing high around the 45.70 level. Then the next area of potential support is at the Ichimoku cloud, and I suggest that it should be strong support around the 44.50 area. The Kijun-sen and Tenkan-sen are above, or the Tenkan-sen is above the Kijun-sen, giving us a bullish market in that medium-term time frame, and suggesting that the market is quite strong. But looking at the Chikou span and the corresponding price action, it's confirming the bullishness that we're seeing, but it is a fair way above the corresponding price action, so perhaps looking a little overextended. And volatility here really does tell a tale, and we are at a very high level that we have been at when we have seen volatility at a cyclical high and then coming off, so it wouldn't surprise to see something of a change of direction in this market for the next week or so. In terms of relative strength, outperforming the market still, so that's a positive there, but with the potential for volatility to come off, we could see something of a retracement or congestion, but we can't preempt the market. We have to wait and watch how the market behaves, and if we do see a negative market for this candle when it finishes trading on Friday this week, it may herald a potential change of trend for the following week.